Hey everybody, we're back. Here we are with another episode of The Shift with Gina. Thank you for tuning in. We had a really nice discussion in the last episode about therapy and depression and trauma and how so many people in today's generation are just over traumatizing everything and relying on therapy and psychiatry as if it's going to be the gold standard for healing. There were a lot of comments, and before we jump into today's topic, I want to answer one question that came in the comment section from the last episode. So the whole episode started because I was going over the sort of viral conversation on Twitter between Matt Walsh and some other people on the right who were discussing whether therapy is useful, whether the industry has helped any people, and whether it should still be used as a form of healing for a lot of people in the modern age. And this is what somebody asked about PPD, postpartum depression. This person, GE5970, said, I think last year you referred to that global antidepressant chart when talking about the dangers of the nuclear family, and that moms going through postpartum who lack familial support are depressed and turn to antidepressants. That many of these antidepressant users are new mothers going through PPD. Do you think PPD is a real form of depression? That's a great question. And it brings up two important points. One important point is community. And one of the reasons that in general, before we even get into postpartum and post-pregnancy motherhood, one of the reasons that people in general in our modern society struggle with what is called depression, what is called anxiety, is because we have a severe lack of family and community support in today's age. We are more connected than ever, right? With social media and our phones, email, text, call, Skype, FaceTime. I don't know why I said Skype. Nobody uses Skype anymore, but FaceTime, you get what I'm saying. You can call and, quote, see anybody whenever you want, right? And long distance relationships are more possible than ever, right? Because you have a way to just contact them in a split second. And in the midst of all the so-called connection, we're more disconnected than ever. And so there's a couple of other comments in the section from the last episode of people saying that community it plays a really strong role in the reason that people feel depressed, because they don't have anybody to talk to. They don't have anyone to mentor them. They don't have anyone to guide them, and they're isolated and alone. And we know that especially the younger generation, millennials and Gen Z, they see their friends in person less than every past generation did before. They also date much less, and they have sex much less than every past generation before. And it's not because they're saving sex for marriage. It's because they're sitting at home watching porn, and they don't have the wherewithal or the guts to go out and date people. This goes for both men and women. So there's a severe lack of relationships happening in the modern world right now. And I think that definitely contributes to the rising rates of so-called depression and antidepressant use. In terms of PPD, so do I think PPD is a real form of depression? Well, what's real depression? That's the question that we kind of asked and got into in the last episode. I still haven't gotten a good enough definition of what real depression is, because a lot of the so-called definitions that I got about depression, it just sounded like extreme sadness. It just sounded like extreme loneliness. I think PPD is very real, just like someone who is struggling from what we call depression is real. But I think most of the time, 9.9 times out of 10, postpartum depression happens for these common reasons. Number one, the nuclear family has isolated mothers and wives in a way that we have never seen before in human history. And every time I say this online, it's usually met with some sort of disdain, or I'm gaslit for it. But it's because you people don't know history. You don't know what our ancestors did during times of pregnancy, birth, postpartum, rearing and educating children. We had an entire village of women that did it together. It was pretty unheard of for a woman to be totally separated, not only from her family, but from a community and a village of women, because everyone lived in villages. That was the way to protect one another, protect the people and the families that you shared something in common with, which was usually your race and your ethnicity or your religion or all of the above. So women had always had this very strong community of women around them, whether it was family members or friends in the village, and giving birth to children, going through pregnancy, raising children, even providing food and cooking for the children and educating the children. That was all done together with the women around them. So when we look at today's structure of the nuclear family, for example, it looks very different than what our ancestors had in the past. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible for a woman today in a nuclear family to raise her children successfully. No, it's not impossible, but it is a lot harder with the way that Western American society has set up the family unit. And that really started in the early to mid 1900s with the marketing tools of, trying to get people to move to the suburbs and go for the white picket fence and American dream and buy the new washing machine and dishwasher so that the mom can stay home all day and use these new appliances. People don't realize that the promotion of the nuclear family was a big part of consumerism. To separate families from each other, to separate a husband and a wife from the extended family, or even from apprentices and hired help, that was always a part of human history. Even families that were not wealthy or aristocratic, there was always some kind of apprentice on hand because there was usually a large piece of land they needed help with. And then, of course, there were nannies, for a lack of a better term, but there were people there to help with the kids because people were having like 7, 10, 12 kids. And today, there are moms who are like chastised for like Ballerina Farm, for example, right? She's got a whole team of help. Good for her. She can afford it. That's what you do when you have money today. I don't know why people get upset about it. You see a lot of other influencers who are more on the quote trad side. Not even if they don't call themselves trad. I hate that term, but you get what I'm saying. They have help. Big deal. That's how it always was in history, guys. Women always had help, whether it was hired help or help from women in the village. So back to postpartum depression. One of the reasons that so many women feel depressed after having a baby is because it's hard enough having a baby. Your first baby is like, there's nothing that can really prepare you for it. It's a lot. You have to sacrifice yourself physically every single day with the healing and then the breastfeeding. It's like 0 to 100 overnight in the matter of minutes. All of a sudden you have this baby that you have to feed every couple of hours and you're tired and you're super hormonal. The hormonal changes that you go through the first 6 weeks after birth are more drastic than the hormonal changes you go through during the entire pregnancy. Because think about it this way, it takes 9-10 months to grow a baby and give birth to the baby. And postpartum, that all crashes hormonally in the matter of weeks, in a month, 6 weeks. Your hormones are trying desperately to get back to where they were before because there's no more baby in the body and your body's smart. Your body is trying to adapt and protect you and trying to always recalibrate to whatever situation it's thrown in. So the hormonal issues too, it makes it a lot more difficult for you to adapt to what's going on with this new life. And then you think about the nuclear family, what happens today in Western American society? Dad goes back to work as he should. A lot of people say, oh, well, we should have paternity leave. Men should be able to stay home for 3 months with their mom. No, you know why? It was not the men or the husbands that used to stay home with the wives during the postpartum period. It was the other women. The mom was there, the aunt was there, the sisters were there, the cousins were there, the friends in the village were there. The other women were there to help with postpartum because it's not really the husband's job. I'm not saying that the husband should never help. We're going to get into gender roles. That's what the entire episode is about today. The husband, of course, should help and should be willing to help in however way he can. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that men can do in the first couple of months of your first baby because it's all about mommy and breastfeeding and getting up in the middle of the night. But there are plenty of husbands out there who will contribute as much as they can. The point is that women always had help. And now with Western American society, wives are usually isolated, especially with the decline of church life. Western Protestant Christianity is quite isolating. This is one of the reasons I love Orthodoxy, because Eastern Orthodoxy the God family is so important. The God family, the godparents of the children, your godparents, your sponsors, you have a very strong God family. And it is the godparents' responsibility to look out for the child spiritually and to guide the child spiritually. It's just as much of the godparents' responsibility as it is the parents, if not more the godparents. So you already have this built-in God family that is willing and wants to help in any way they can with the child. And I think that Western, especially Protestant Christianity, has left a lot of these moms extra isolated, because this whole idea of the nuclear family being separated from the extended family and all that, it does a lot. The roots of that a lot are in Western Protestant Puritanism. That's something that we can go into in another episode, but this is not about bashing Protestantism. This is just the truth of the matter. That's where a lot of these things come from. So that's one of the reasons why so many moms feel like they're depressed. It is depressing to be isolated in the first couple of months of your new child's life, and you don't know what you're doing, and you're tired as hell, and you're trying to get back into the swing of things, and this child keeps crying and you don't know why, and do I do this and do I do that? I don't know. I have to eat. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm upset. Yeah, that's a big reason. And then on top of that, the conventional medical system will structure birth and the postpartum period to leave women with no help, or even worse, on these pharmaceuticals that mess up their system and mess up their hormones even more. So do I think PPD is real? Absolutely, it's real. Do I think it's like depression in the way that psychiatric professionals will call it? I don't know, but it's a very real thing. And 9.9 times out of 10, it comes from these environmental factors. And on top of that, the lack of physical health. Most mothers today in America are extremely unhealthy. They didn't eat healthy before their pregnancy. They didn't eat healthy during pregnancy. They didn't keep their body moving during pregnancy. And do you think that postpartum is going to be easy for you? You eat like crap. You eat McDonald's and you eat shit food all the time before you're pregnant and during your pregnancy. Don't you think that your postpartum is going to be extremely difficult? Yeah, that's how it works. So that's another factor too. So I wanted to just answer that question. I hope that clears things up in terms of postpartum depression. Today, we're going to talk about gender roles. I don't know why I almost forgot the word roles at the end of that. I almost said gender theory. That's not the right gender term I'm talking about. Gender roles. But first, I want to tell you about this brand new sponsor that we have. I am excited to share with you guys this skincare and beauty brand called Charlize. Okay, Charlize Skincare is a product that I've been using for about the past year and a half. And as you guys know, if you follow me, especially on social media, you know that I don't really use any skincare or beauty products outside of, for example, beef tallow. Like I use beef tallow at night for moisturizer. But if I have to put on makeup to go somewhere, it doesn't really work to use beef tallow underneath it. So there's one product that I've been really loving. It's this daily moisturizer from Charlize Skincare. And I'm going to put the link in the description so you can check out the whole website and look at all of their products. I got my mom a kit of like their face serum and their overnight serum and their toner and cleanser and moisturizer for Christmas. And she really loves the products. My mom and I are really particular about what kind of skincare products we use. I've been using their daily moisturizer and their facial cleanser and their tinted SPF moisturizer for over a year now. And I love their products. And I'm really excited to partner with them because I hopefully will never bring you guys products that I don't use myself. So I have a 20% discount code, Gina, Gina. So click the link in the description to check out the products. You can use my discount code to test out the product, see if you like it. I've never had any issues with skin sensitivity. They're very careful about what ingredients they put in their products. And it's also an added bonus that the founder of this company is on our side in terms of values, right? So it's really nice to know that you're giving your money to people who don't hate you and who don't support things like abortion and all the other leftist trash things that most of these beauty brands support. So link in the description. Next time on air, I'll show you guys my whole kit, but I'm wearing their moisturizer right now. I wear it underneath my makeup all the time. I love it. So for 20% off, use the code GINA, Gina. Okay, gender roles. Why do I keep forgetting that word? Gender roles. You know why? Because it's been hammered into our heads over the last 5 years. Gender theory. It's roles. We're talking about gender roles today. There are a couple of videos and tweets that I want to show you because I'm starting to feel like, I felt like this for a long time, but it's taken me a while to do an episode about it. I have felt for some time now that the right has completely overcorrected when we talk about gender roles. Obviously, the feminist movement and the left has done everything they can to dismantle anything that's possibly gendered. And that's wrong. there are gender roles. Gender roles exist. There are general personality differences between the two genders that lend themselves to different gender roles. And I think that these gender roles should be recognized and honored for the most part in marriages. In successful marriages, they are honored. But the right has done this weird thing in the last couple of years where they totally overcorrect. And it's as if they are desiring partners. I hate that word, excuse me. They are desiring husbands or wives who are completely insufficient and totally hopeless when it comes to any of the gender roles that are the opposite of their own. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. There's this video that went viral on Twitter. It's from TikTok. I don't know who this creator is. Maybe she's a momfluencer or whatever. She and her son, her child, had COVID. They were really sick for about a week, so they isolated upstairs in the home. When she was finally feeling better, her husband did not catch it. Isn't that funny? Sometimes there's always one person in the family who doesn't get it. Everyone else gets sick except that one person. So the husband and the father was that one person, okay? And she comes back down from being upstairs and sick for 7 days, and she takes a video of what the kitchen looks like. And this is going to be the jumping off point for our conversation today. So let's take a look at this video and let's talk about it.
It's been 7 days since I cleaned my kitchen. In fact, it's been that long since I stepped foot in it. My son and I got COVID while my husband somehow managed to avoid it. So we isolated on the top floor. The kitchen is so much worse than I could have imagined. I don't even want to look in the sink. A huge part of me knows how bad it's going to be because the entire kitchen smells like vinegar. That means there's rotting food hidden somewhere. I don't want to know what these sticky substances are because the second that I do, I just want to quit. I throw away this cup because there is no saving it. And a huge part of me wants to feel shame over how the kitchen looks. The entire bottom of the sink is filled with old food. Every time that I think I've seen the worst of it, I'm proven wrong. This is a smoothie that I made before I got COVID. I can't believe how disgusting things are. And I don't know how I'm going to get rid of the smell. But I refuse to tear myself down over the state of this kitchen. Most days I was too exhausted to get out of bed. And when I could force myself off of it, it was to take care of my sick little one. When some of my symptoms started to get better, I was working every day. I also did the laundry and cleaned the entire top floor. Acknowledging what I was able to do doesn't mean that I'm proud of how my kitchen looks. The smell alone told me how bad it was before I even saw it. But at the same time, I can also recognize I did the best that I could this week.
Ugh, it's so gross. You know, for those of the women out there who are moms, you know how when you're pregnant, you just smells, you're so much more sensitive to smells. Every time I'm pregnant, my husband knows that he has to empty out any Tupperware in the fridge that's like either starting to go bad or just smells a little funny. It's like his job when I'm pregnant because I can't do it. I can't do any smells. And so even looking at some of the parts in that video just made me want to hurl. Okay. So, this is what the husband essentially left behind for the mom while she was upstairs sick with the son. And there are two angles. It's been 7 days
since I cleaned my kitchen. In fact,
there are two angles here that people are taking. The first angle is like, why would you get married? Men suck. This is why women want to be single. We're going to talk about that stupid angle later. But I want to talk about the idea of gender roles because a lot of people on the right are responding to this and they're like, well, yeah, it's your job to keep things clean. And if you're sick, like, you know, your job's not going to get done. And I just keep seeing content over and over again online from people on the right where it's like, they almost brag about the fact that their husbands can't do any housework or any cleaning or any cooking whatsoever. And it's almost like a badge of honor. And there are these young little like trad influencers, quote trad influencers, who are like, when I get married, my husband's never going to clean the kitchen. When I get married, my husband is never going to cook. He is never going to sweep the floor because I am his wife and that's my job. And so you see this narrative all the time and it's kind of cute because you're like, oh, honey, it's so nice. That's so sweet that you think that. You just got to that's so sweet that you think that. And there's a lot of this stuff coming from the right online about gender roles. Let me give you my take on this, okay? Obviously, gender roles exist. And for the most part, it's generally going to be that the woman is taking care of the kitchen and she's cooking and she's doing most of the housework because generally it's the husband who is taking on the role of protecting and providing. My mom always used to tell me that Koreans, like almost the literal translation of man or husband is like outside person, right? So the husband / man is is usually the person doing the work outside of the home, and the woman takes care of inside of the home. Generally, that makes sense, right? But we have taken that to a point where it's legalistic. And that legalism is so annoying to me. And it's also very counterproductive and not at all useful in a marriage. Because when I look at this video, if there were no family in the house and if it were just a man living like this, what would you think of that man? I don't care if you're a man or a woman. What kind of person allows your home to get to that level of filth? And this is the problem. I see that so many people on the right are allowing their view of gender roles to infantilize one person in the marriage, whether it's the man or the woman. And we'll get to the part where these gender role extremes infantilize the woman too. But this is an infantilization of men. What kind of a man would allow his home to look like that, especially when his wife and his kid are sick upstairs for 7 days? If I were dating and if I went to a man's house for the first time to we've been dating for a few months now. I'm curious to see what his house is like, because you can learn a lot by what a person's house looks like, right? And if I saw that, if a single man were living in that kind of filth, that would say a lot about the person, his level of maturity, his level of cleanliness, obviously. And it's just like that rule, how you do one thing is how you do everything in life. And Jordan Peterson talks a lot about the importance of making your bed, the importance of cleaning your room. His message is meant for a lot of young single men. The way that you take pride in your home and in your immediate surroundings says a lot about the way that you're going to function in everyday life, whether it's your career or whatever else it might be. And I look around at this and I'm like, look, I'm totally all for gender roles, guys, but why are we making excuses for husbands and men to live like this? This is disgusting. And it's so weird to me that people will try to make this a conversation about like, well, if that's the woman's job and the man should never do it. Is that really what we're saying here? Because this is an infantilization of men. This is like you're living with a teenager. Now, of course, it's easy for people to be like, oh, so you're saying that men should do all the housework. Obviously, that's not what we're saying. But I think it's perfectly reasonable to want to marry a human being who is capable of taking care of themselves and who is capable of picking up after you if you're sick. The whole idea of a marriage and a husband and wife relationship is that you look out for each other and you pick up the slack in areas where sometimes the person just can't do it. And for the smart ass comments in the section who were like, well, if the man is sick for a week or two, you think that the woman should take over the role of mowing the grass and paying the bills and working? Yeah, that is what I'm saying. Because in sickness or in health, you are meant to pick up the slack after one another. You are one. So of course, if my husband is bedridden for a week or two and he can't work or he can't take the trash out or take care of the yard or do the things that the quote manly things that he does, I'm going to do my best to make sure they get done. And if there's something that I can't do, like if I don't know how to use a lawnmower, if I don't know how to use something, like I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to make sure it gets done. I'll ask my dad or a friend or a family member to come over and help. But like this kind of behavior is really infantilizing, that we're encouraging this and that we think this is normal for women to be married to a man who cannot even clean the kitchen when she's sick upstairs with the child for a week. Now, if this were a regular occurrence and she leaves the kitchen that way all the time, different story. But let's, take what we can from this video. It seems like this is a one-off thing. She's usually clean and taking care of the home, and she's been upstairs for 7 days, sick, hasn't come down, and then she comes down to this. That's disgusting. Why are we okay with this? See, my parents' generation, I remember being taught, and I'm curious to hear for those of you who are millennials, when I was being brought up, I remember my parents and other adults, family members, or other parents from church or whatever, I remember them telling us, even young women, that we should be intelligent and independent and that we should be well-rounded individuals. And that, okay, back then, education was definitely liberal, but it wasn't to the point that it is today. And that we should be educated and that we should be able to stand on our own feet so that when we do get married and when it is time to get married and have children and be in charge of a home, we are a well-rounded enough person that if an emergency happens, whether it's an illness or an accident or a tragedy, something happens in the home that incapacitates our husband, we can take over some of his duties. Like we can make some money if we need to because we have a skill that we can use in the world. My dad always talked about how it's probably important for a woman, like learn how to change a spare tire if you need to. These are like the classic sort of life tasks that my parents' generation taught us that we had to know just so you could be a well-rounded human being. And now the right today with this whole quote trad obsession, it's telling women that they should have zero education. Look, I get that, we're talking about liberal education, but when I say education, I'm not talking about going to college and having some sort of stupid women's studies degree. I'm talking about a true education, knowing classical literature, knowing classical arts, being educated, even if it means that you are well read. My generation, we were taught that we should be well-rounded human beings so that we have a lot to offer in a marriage. And today, these quote trad young girls are talking about how they're not gonna know how to do any of that because all they need to do, the only thing I'm gonna raise my daughter to know how to do is make a home and cook and clean for her husband. Those are the basics. Yeah, you should definitely know that, but is that all we want to bring to the table as wives? That's it? And is our husband should we not teach our young men and our young boys to pick up after themselves and be clean human beings and be organized and take respect in their own home, especially if they're single? I mean, the great thing about being married is that you can pass off some of the tasks to your spouse. That's the great thing about being married. Okay. And the thing about gender roles, this is how I see it. The thing about gender roles is that you don't, out of spite, refuse to learn any of the other gender roles just because they're the other gender roles. When you go into a marriage, you choose to step into your own gender roles because it's what's best for the family. But if there comes a time where you need to take on the other spouse's gender roles temporarily because of illness, tragedy, accident, death, God forbid, then you are prepared to do that because you want to be the most prepared, well-rounded human being so that you can be the best mother or father or husband or wife that you can be for your family. And now all of a sudden we've taken it to the extreme where it's like, you shouldn't even know any of the other gender roles. You should only know how to cook and clean as a woman and that's it. Why? Why are we limiting women to that? And why are we limiting men to have zero pride in the way that they take care of their own home? I think that we should be raising young men to be clean and organized, not so they can be stay-at-home daddy and cook and clean for the family, but just so they can be respectable human beings. I don't think I've ever seen a very successful man who is not clean and organized. Have you seen many slobs? Okay, maybe you'll find some autistic geniuses who are slobs, and that's the minority. But most of the successful men in this world, they have respect for their own home and for their own environment. And I don't think they're going to live in filth. And I think that we should raise young men to be like that. And I think we should raise young women to be well-rounded individuals. So let's take a look at these two tweets that are related to this. Okay, so this is, I don't know who it is, but it's an account on Twitter, right? And so this is a tweet that she put up last month. It says, I love traveling as a wife. What's the address? I don't know. I'm passenger princess. Which gate are we supposed to go to? Not a clue. I'm just following my husband. How do I have Wi-Fi right now on the plane? Beats me. He set it up for me. My job is to look pretty and hold our son. Okay, and then let's look at this one. This is a guy from Justin Murphy. This is what he says. Men, just marry a hot, lower IQ girl from a rural church, one who is simple and practical and faithful. You don't need or want impressive opinions about foreign films. A little retarded, but I love them. Words spoken by many happy husbands and many happy wives, no less. Okay, so Do you see what I'm saying? Do you get this trend that I'm talking about with this new trad resurgence? It's not resurgence because this new trad thing, it's new. It's not referring to tradition at all. The advice here and the narrative here is that women should be very helpless and they should be a little, that's the exact wording here, a little, and they should be incapable of taking care of themselves and incapable of knowing how to like travel, basically, right? So this is so stupid to me. This is so stupid. To what this guy is saying, you want a lower IQ girl who's a little doesn't have any impressive opinions about foreign films. Okay, I could give two craps about foreign films, whatever. But you want a lower IQ girl who's a little. Do you guys not realize that your wife is going to be raising, and if you are, quote, traditional, educating your children, and you want a raising and educating your children? Does this make sense to any of you? Like, again, when I was growing up, the boys in my family and the boys that I grew up with, they were taught to find a smart, capable wife who would be able to assist them in their dreams and in growing a family and in raising capable, smart children. And now we're telling young men to marry with low IQs. What is happening? Do you see how stupid this trad stuff is? It's so dumb. And then, look, I'm sure this girl in the tweet about traveling was kind of joking around. Like, okay, she's probably kidding. But I mean, I don't know. Let's say that she's kidding. I see a lot of stuff like this online, though, from a lot of other these trad wives. They're like, I just love being a clueless trad wife and not knowing anything about our bills or not knowing anything about how much our mortgage is. Like, you should know that information. Why are we encouraging wives to be stupid and to not have any idea what's going on, whether you're traveling with your family? Like, if I'm traveling with my husband, with my kids to go somewhere, I want to know where we're going. I want to know what the gate is. I want to know all the information too, so that we can all have the right information. God forbid if we get separated or whatever might happen. Like, I want to know what's going on. And I want to know basic information about our mortgage and about what bills we have, because God forbid if my husband's sick, I have to take over the bills. I got to make sure the bills are paid. If God forbid something happens to your husband, you have to make sure that things are getting paid. I don't know why we are suddenly in this extreme of moms and wives being totally stupid and useless. It's so ridiculous. I even think back to like the 1950s. It's such a silly example, but I think it's actually not a bad example. The movie Mona Lisa Smile. I like that movie. Yeah, sure. It's got some feminist stuff in it, but it's also got some really nice traditional stuff in it. The character Joan, Julia Stiles, she was on track to go to Yale Law School, but the professor, Julia Roberts, kept pushing her and she was like, apply, you can get in, you can do it. And what did Julia Stiles want more than anything? She wanted to be a wife and a mother, and she wanted to raise children and have a lovely home. And so she chose to not go to law school, and she chose to marry that guy, Topher Grace, and to start a home and a family with him. And in the speech that she gave to Julia Roberts, she said to her, she says, along the lines of, you're so judgmental. You think that just because I want to prioritize motherhood and family, you think that I don't have any thoughts. You think that I'm stupid. You think that I don't have any opinions. And you think that I'm not a deep person. And she was like, that's insulting. Just because a woman chooses to raise a family does not mean that she is an idiot with nothing in her head. It means that she is a very educated and well-read woman who has a lot to give to her children. I don't know why these women don't want to be well-read and well-educated. Again, when I say educated, I'm not talking about going to liberal universities. You can be educated by educating yourself, being well-read, being well-versed in different subjects, having a skill. You want to bring that to your children. And that's one of the reasons that outsourcing education looks so good to so many liberals, because they complain and they say, well, these moms and wives aren't equipped to educate their children. I agree with that sometimes. A lot of these women are not equipped to educate children. They're not, because they want to be silly, flowery dresses housewives who don't know anything. that your children deserve more than that. And so in that movie, Mona Lisa Smile, the university back in the 50s, like they had this sort of unspoken code that women were in school to educate themselves and to make themselves the most prospective bachelorette for a husband one day. And then when they got married, they stopped their education or they graduated, they didn't go work. And that's how it used to be. It used to be that women were encouraged to be smart, were encouraged to be capable, but they were also encouraged to prioritize family. And they used their intelligence and they used their capability to be excellent wives and mothers. And I don't know why we have lost that today. I think it's a good thing for women to be well-read and to be smart, not so you can go out and be some boss girl and deny yourself a husband and children until you're 35 years old, but so that you can be the absolute best wife and mother you could possibly be. So you can support your husband in his endeavors, especially his career, his professional endeavors, maybe his entrepreneurial spirit, so that you can educate your children, so you can bring up wonderful daughters and amazing sons. You want to be the most well-rounded, intelligent person and an aware, wise person to do that. So I don't buy into this whole trad thing of women being dum-dums and men being totally useless at home. Those are just my thoughts. I'm sure some of you disagree. That's fine. But I don't think it's helping anybody. And then, of course, you have the other side of the argument, right? Here is another video. This is from, I don't know who this is from. This is a TikToker, and she talks about how she loves being alone. She loves being single. And if she wants to find a man, he has to prove to her that life is better with him than her alone. So let's take a look at this very short video.
There's nothing a man should fear more than a woman who's comfortable being alone. You are now competing with me. You're not competing with other guys. I am good being alone. I am fine. So you have to be better than me. You have to make it so that I want to be with you instead of being with me. How are you going to do that?
And then this Twitter account, Slotsyism, said, men simply don't understand that they aren't competing with other men for a woman's affections. They're competing with her solitude. If your son can't make a woman happier than she is on her own, why the F would she have him around? So then the flip side of this is like, men ruin women's lives and they make life so much harder for women. So what's the point? Duh. Married life is not easier than single life. I don't know why these women think that they have discovered something new. Single life is obviously easier than married life. Single life and childless life is obviously easier than married life of a mother. This is not, I don't know why that they think this is like some groundbreaking news that men didn't know before, women didn't know before. Yeah, of course it's easier. But the point of marriage is to not make your life easier. The point of marriage is not even to make you happier. Sorry, I know that's going to make a lot of people mad. The point of marriage is not to make you happier. And the point of finding a husband is not to make your life easier. The purpose of finding a husband and raising a family is to create a lasting family unit that is going to provide value to the world, that is going to bring fulfillment not only to your children, but to yourself and to God, and to create the next generation of capable, intelligent, moral individuals who are going to move the world forward. So the whole premise that marriage and husband should make your life easier and happier is so selfish and feminist. It's an incredibly feminist approach to marriage. I'm better on my own. So you're not competing with other men. You're competing with me. Why? Why do you think it's the man's job to make your life easier? Yeah, life is a little bit harder when you have kids. Life is a little bit harder when you have a husband that you have to think about before yourself and that you have to take care of. Just like life is going to be harder for him because he's going to have to do the same for you. Because his job as husband is to lay his life down for you the way that Christ laid down his life for the church. And your job as a woman is to submit to him and support him and help take care of him and make his life a little bit more manageable. Yeah, that's a lot harder than being single and doing all the fun things on your own. Yeah, it's easy to be single, guys. It's so easy. We know that. But the point of marriage, again, is to not make you happy. You think marriage is some like personal growth exercise? Marriage is a sacrament, a gift given to us by God so that we can honor God through our union, have children, procreate. That's what God asks us to do. Those of us who are going to get married, he asks us to get married and procreate and to fill the world with more godly, moral children. It's not a hard one to figure out. So all of these videos are so silly. Oh, life's so much easier. Yeah, it's not news that life is easier when you're single. Of course it's easier. But this whole modern idea that everything you do in your life should make your life easier. Everything involving your husband should make your life happier and easier, not harder. Because if it's going to be harder, why would you be with him? Because fulfilling and rewarding things are always going to be harder. Always. You're not going to find a single thing in your life that has lifelong reward and reward past this life that is easy. No way. This is, again, this Western modern take on everything versus what we're taught in the church is that your suffering is a way for sanctification, is that your suffering is a way for you to participate in the suffering of Christ. Not that marriage is all suffering, but you get what I'm saying. Things are going to be tough. It's going to be hard. And you approach all of that gladly, joyfully, which is so much easier said than done. Trust me, I know. But we're meant to approach it all joyfully because it is a way for us to grow closer to Christ and for us to fulfill our purpose in Christ. That's all I got for today. Okay, so I'm sure that there are going to be people who call me a feminist for this. I am a fan of gender roles, guys, but let's not totally reject learning about anything else outside of our gender roles just out of spite for this silly trad trend. It's an aesthetic, and it's an aesthetic that's going to be out of style soon online. The word fetish has been thrown around in the comment section, and many episodes ago I said the same thing. I honestly think this trad thing is a fetish. And that's why you see a lot of OnlyFans girls who are going into the trad thing because it's just another fetish. Sorry. Okay. By the way, February 1st, we are starting a high protein breakfast challenge in my group, The Shift. I'm giving you 28 days of high protein breakfast recipes. We're going to be doing live streams and a lot of educational content on why breakfast is so important, women, for your hormones, for your blood sugar levels, for your fertility. It's important to eat regularly, especially breakfast. We're going to be talking a lot about that. And I'm going to give you a new recipe every day of the month in February. So enrollment for The Shift opens on January 26th. We're going to close on January 31st. So click the link in the description to join us if you're a woman. If you're a man listening, send the link to your girlfriend or your wife or sister or mom or cousin or friend, whatever, because we would love to have some more ladies in the group. Because breakfast is good for you. We're going to talk a lot about intermittent fasting and things like that as well. All right, thanks for joining, guys. I'm off for the night. Hope you have a good one. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all the things. If you like the episode, share it. If you don't, share it. That's good too. Okay, bye.